I am fighting for an atmosphere wherein I could make the kind of films I'd like to make with the least compromise. And to do that, you have to change the system. You cannot just sort of confine yourself to the problems of movie making. For example, the problems that you encounter as far as movie making is concerned, like censorship or high taxes and all that. In the beginning, I did not get myself involved with all this parliament of the streets or all this protest movement. I felt and I thought that by not cooperating with the government, everything would be okay. You know, my conscience was clear and clean. Nobody can tell me that you cooperated with a government that did not respect human rights, you know, a government that declared martial law and took away the rights of its citizens, the right to express themselves, the right to assemble peacefully and to strike or to protest, you know. For a long time, I would see these people marching in the streets, and I would hear about salvagings, and I would hear about people being arrested, Senator Aquino being arrested and being imprisoned, and they spent years in jail. And I didn't do anything about that. I was not part of the protesting group. But all that changed when one day I read about these people who were being imprisoned because of a presidential decree called preventive detentive action. I suddenly realized that it was not enough to act individually. You cannot, for example, separate what is happening in the country, you know, the realities around with the reality of filmmaking. You cannot here in this particular case, you know, because at least that was what we found out during that protest movement, being involved in the protest movement, you know, when our eyes were open and we sort of got enlightened and sort of got politicized. You realize that the problems of filmmaking is the same problem of the laborer and the peasants and all the other sectors, you know. So you have to form a solidarity with them. This was very much reflected in Bayang Ko or Kapit sa Patalim, you know. It's the story of a laborer who just pursued his own job, his own personal interest. His justification and his reasoning is, my wife is in the hospital. It was purely personal, and it was purely an individual act, you know. Fine, nobody's telling him that that is wrong. That is a very valid reason, you know. His wife is in the hospital in much the same way that I, as a director, could probably have said, I'm pursuing my art, you know, I'd like to make films, I'm a creative filmmaker, etc., so I should not get myself involved with this thing.
Pakinggan niyo naman ako. Hindi naman ako manunubay, Dr. Fernandez. Pakinggan. Guide! Ano ba, guide? Nagmamakahawa ako sa inyo. Pagbigyan niyo naman ako. Magbabayad naman ako. Sandali.
But then in the end, like this laborer in Bayang Ko, played by Philip Salvador, he realized that the solution to his particular problem, to get his wife out of the hospital, basic problems like social services and all that, he realized that he cannot do it alone, that it had to be done in solidarity with the other group, and that the solution to that particular problem of his would depend on the solution of the bigger problems. And the bigger problems, of course, definitely is the system, you know.
Ang hinihiling lang niya eh. Katulad ho ng hinihiling namin lahat dito eh. Konting katarungan.
Ano po kanyo? Pakilakas lang po ninyo.
Konting katarungan po.
Pwede nating makuha ang mga detalye ng mga...
Are the Filipinos doomed?
No, definitely not. The fact that we were able to kick out the dictator for the last 20 years, that shows what the people can do. And as long as there are people marching into the streets and protesting, then the Philippines can never be doomed. Filipinos are very fatalistic. They accept the fate, you know. Catholic Church tells them it is good to suffer. That has to change. They should not accept the fate, you know. You cannot reach that point without making them angry and dissatisfied with their condition, you know. And dissatisfaction and anger will only come with an awareness of the problem, awareness of the system that they're moving in, you know. Awareness, for example, of the human condition that they're in.
You seem to be branded as a troublemaker.
Well, not just as a troublemaker, branded as a communist, branded as a subversive, you know, but we're used to that already. I guess I am, you know. We make trouble, we make noise when, definitely when an episode, for example, like on the urban poor, presenting the problems of the urban poor, showing these people making statements saying that they were poor during the Marcos administration, they're still poor under the Cory administration, you know.
The new People's Army is welcomed by the people. It is loved by the people. It's supported by the people.
What are the origins of the NPA?
They're called the New People's Army. And of course, now the present administration and the past administration, of course, brand them as communists, you know. And while we would agree to a certain degree that they're communist, the point is that you have to understand why these people went into the mountains and joined the New People's Army. Most of them are peasants, you know, who did not have justice in their fight against the landlords, against capitalists, you know. Most of them were people who were just deprived of justice. Most of them were just people whose lands were taken away from them, you know, because they did not have access to influence, they did not have access to money, you know, and they were victims of corruption. They're completely exploited and completely victimized. And having no recourse, they've lost trust and confidence in justice, you know. So, what do? Their option is violence, to
You
take up
support them?
arms. Yes, I am sympathetic to them. I'm not supporting them, but I am sympathetic to them, you know. Give them a chance.
What about the vigilantes? That's a new group. Who are they?
Well, the vigilante are armed citizens groups, you know. These are paramilitary groups that are now being used by the military and has the sanction of the present administration to take up arms, you know, to run after supposed to be suspected communist or NPA, you know. So it's supposed to be a private citizens army, a civilian militia, you know.
Do you support them?
No, we are denouncing them. We are denouncing its organization. We are denouncing the president. We protest the way President Aquino has given her sanction to them, you know, because now they are licensed to kill. Of course, they say that it is not so, but in practice, that is what's happening.
This is Agdao, what used to be known as the hotbed or the laboratory of the communist insurgents in Davao. Ironically, it was also in Agdao where an anti-communist movement, now known as the Alsa-Masa, began. Alsa-Masa was founded by former NPA rebels who finally decided to fight communism. They now patrol the area regularly to...
Anybody who dissents is a communist, and so you're actually giving license for these people to kill in the name of freedom and in the name of democracy, you know, and that should be stopped.
Doesn't that show weakness in the military?
It only shows that Cory is not in control of the military, you know, that the military is making use of the popularity of President Aquino to do their thing, you know.
The Alsa-Masa are the people, the citizens and the residents of the Purok barangay, and the group that are protecting the life and property there are the CHDFs.
Is this something you think is very dangerous?
Oh, very dangerous. I mean, you do not arm private citizens and organize them into this kind of groups. They're untrained and they're completely, I mean, you give them a gun.
Has there been battles between the NPA and the vigilantes?
Oh, yes, plenty. As a matter of fact, in one of the latest encounters between the vigilante and the NPA, the vigilantes were able to capture or kill some of them. And what they did was they beheaded one member of the NPA. This was splashed all over the papers, you know, and it showed these vigilante groups, very young kids, about 17, 18 years old, they carrying the head of this particular NPA victim.
Life is cheap in the Philippines.
Oh, yes, definitely. And it's getting cheaper. We have organized a group called National Movement to disband vigilante groups.
So you're thinking of making a documentary about the vigilantes?
Yes, definitely. We're trying to educate the people about the vigilante. It's to counteract the propaganda work of the military, making use of media and making use of everything.
Where will you show this film?
Well, hopefully, when it's finished, we'll be able to show it on one of the local televisions, you know.
Don't you ever get tired of fighting?
It gets tiring, but what do? You just stop? I think that's worst. The moment you accept the fact that there cannot be any change, you know, that the system will not change, I think that's the time that you die. You know, I might as well not do